So I just finished watching the film, and I have to tell you, it's one of my favorites that I've watched in a while. It
Great. Happy to hear it.
combines the suspense, the comedy, the cast. There's really nothing more you can ask for. I'm curious for you, what drew you to the script and wanting to direct this film?
Well, all of those things that you mentioned, I thought it combined genres very well, and it was like a full meal and a fun ride. I was in the mood to do something fun after my last movie, The Clofitch Killer, which was kind of dark, and the characters is what really drew me in. The relationship between the two guys and how it was kind of snarky and dry, but ultimately very heartwarming and life affirming without being like too cheesy. I really wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about your directorial debut feature, The Clove Ditch Killer, and
Clofitch Killer. Yeah,
Clove
clofitch is a
Hitch
type of
Killer.
knot. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so I'm curious if you took anything from that experience into this film.
Well, the Clofitch Killer was in a lot of ways, even though it was like I was less experienced, it was easier. We had more time. We had like another week to shoot, and we had a little bit more money. Um, But what I learned from that was really to like trust my instincts, because before I made the Clofitch Killer, I was doing a lot of like straight comedy stuff, and I just had a reckoning with myself about what I was really interested in, and what I like to watch, and what I like to watch was kind of like minimalist suspense. And so that's what I wanted to make, and people responded well to it, and that was a very affirming lesson for me as an artist to kind of, like focus on what I find interesting and focus on the process and let the results kind of take care of themselves after that.
You kind of married two things that you really enjoy, it sounds like, from the comedy part, and then with Clove Hitch, it was very much like it's much more dramatic from what I can
Yeah.
tell to try to
Yeah.
bring the two together. How did you bring that tone to life in this film?
Well, the script is great. I shot the script, and it's by Sean Farley. It's his first produced script, and he's a hidden gem. I hope to work with him some more. We collaborated on another one since shooting this, and he's just got like a really strong sense of story and of character arcs. And so I feel like if you get that down, you can really get away with a lot tonally. I wasn't quite sure how the tone would come all gel, and because the story is there, it hangs together. And as far as like the level of the comedy, I just go by instinct. And Jack and Jeff, would tell you that like whenever they could hear me cackling behind the monitor, something was working, right? So they were making me laugh, and they were making me laugh in ways that surprised me, stuff that went beyond what was on the page. And that's the joy of working with great actors.
And have such great chemistry on screen. It's funny because at the beginning of the film, they're really not supposed to get along, but they do. I'm curious, when you were going out to find the two of them for these roles, what were you looking for and what made them the perfect fit for it?
I was looking for people who understood the contrast between the exterior and the interior of these characters, particularly, well, with Ed. He's kind of full of himself, and he's his own character. Like he's kind of like a cowboy. He wears boots and a corduroy jacket, and he's got like a theme song playing in his head, and he thinks a lot. He thinks very highly of himself. But then you have the interior, kind of vulnerable side of Ed, where he's like a really sad and lonely guy. And Jeff seemed to like get that from our conversations, and I also felt like he physically embodied that because he's got this rugged handsomeness, but also these very like sad, expressive eyes.
Yeah.
And same with Jack. Jack is like an incredibly thoughtful actor, and spent a lot of time with me trading research materials and talking about the backstory of Simon, which the writer Sean, he supplied like a multi-page backstory for all the characters. So, it was just like they cared about it. We all just cared about what these characters were going through, and everybody thankfully was on the same page, or the relative same page, because we didn't have any time for rehearsal. So
No.
it was kind of like, hope this works. And then, at the beginning, it was a little bit like, is this working? What are we doing? But we pulled it together.
You definitely did. And when you were talking about the emotion with Jeff, one thing that really stuck out to me is the pen clicking and how
Mm.
he had been so attached to his pen. And then when he introduced it to Simon, it kind of revealed something about Ed that he was struggling himself internally.
Yeah. Yeah, you mean like Ed was using the pen as a coping
Yeah, so he was,
mechanism?
yeah, I noticed like when he
Yeah.
was in the car, he kept clicking the
Yeah.
pen. And then
Right.
he didn't, it wasn't until later on that he introduced it as a tool to Simon. But you're like, oh, that must have been his way of just escaping his own. And I don't know if that's what your intent was behind it, but that's kind of how I interpreted it. And I loved that.
That's interesting. Yeah, it was like a nervous tick for him, but probably a subconscious coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And yeah, when he noticed Simon like staring at it, that he realized that he was drawn to it for some reason. There's a funny story about that pin. On like the second to last day of shooting, we showed up at the location that was to be the final set piece, that big house, and
Yeah.
the props manager came up to me and told me that the props truck had been stolen the night
Oh,
before, which included like all of our police uniforms and fake guns and that pin, and we only had one of them,
oh
and,
no.
it was on that truck. So and that day we had to shoot like this extreme close up of the pen at the most pivotal scene in the movie. And I was like, we're finished. It's over. We're cooked. But only internally. I didn't say that to anybody else. So we just had Jeff hold it kind of so that you couldn't see it. Nobody notices. Nobody is tracking the continuity of a pen. It all worked out in the end.
It's kind of ironic that you also had like a crime within a crime that somebody stole a
Yeah.
prop truck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some rogue thief driving around Birmingham with all of our
Who
props.
knew that they had this pen that was so valuable?
I know. Don't you know how that we need this stuff right now?
Yeah. And another thing that I really appreciate about your direction is I noticed it right away too in how you depict the voices that Simon hears. And like in the diner, that first scene where he's doing his job interview, and you just get sucked in to be that really close up shot, and you feel like you're in his space, in his head. Was that always how you wanted to show it visually, or did you play around with other things? Because it worked so well, but I'm
Oh,
curious
good.
what your thought process was in utilizing that as the way to
Yeah,
show it.
relatively simple idea that I worked out with Luke McCubry, the DP, and for the most part, we shot it kind of straightforward using regular lenses and um, selective. It's kind of got a simplicity to it
Hmm.
that puts the characters in the story in the forefront so that it doesn't distract from what's going on there. But then whenever Simon is having an episode, we decided to switch to a wide angle lens and just get right up in his face.
Yeah.
And that was an early idea that we just stuck with throughout the movie. And so you'll notice that it gets a little bit more distorted and like right up in there when he's hearing the voice.
Definitely. And another thing I really appreciated was how nostalgic it felt.
Mm.
Where like right out of the gate, the opening sequence with the electronic drums and the synth, it felt like an 80s or
Oh,
90s
nice.
crime drama in like the best way. And I'm
Nice.
curious if you if that was intentional, and if you look to any films or filmmakers in trying to create that in this film.
We certainly referenced a movie from the 80s called Midnight Run as a big inspiration for this, with Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro, for the story about like an odd pairing of guys who are enemies at first and they become friends by the end, but also the way that it kind of melded genres and was a fun ride. And I didn't specifically say let's make this feel like any specific era. It was because I really try to embrace contemporary times. You know, like
Yeah.
I want to make something new. I want to find an amalgam that creates something new and not constantly be referencing old stuff. I think that it ends up feeling somewhat nostalgic for like a number of factors. And I'm not sure what it is. It's kind of like a secret sauce, but I describe it as just like cozy, and that's kind of like my aesthetic. I like to inhabit worlds that I would want to be in. I want to spend time there. So no matter what the genre is that I'm making, I just am drawn to spaces that have kind of like a run down quality. And for some reason that's like comforting, you know. And I also really love like I've always been a fan of Alexander Payne, who directed Election and About Schmidt and Sideways, and I think he just does like such an incredible job of observing Middle America,
Yeah.
and I try to do that as well.
Yeah, I think you did a great job with that, especially like I feel like you especially feel it in the warmness of the colors with the
Mhm.
editing of it too. That's a huge part of trying to get that feeling too, which
Yeah,
definitely came across.
we had the benefit of shooting in fall, just like we
Um,
did with the Clowfish Killer, and that definitely helps.
oh, definitely, especially with like the cloudiness. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Was there any particular scene that you are most proud of, whether it's technically or emotionally, that really stands out for you?
The scene on the bus, I always loved it in the script, and then when it came time to shooting it, I almost didn't do it. I was just really worried that it wouldn't work. I mean, we were up against it on this one, Amelia. I mean, we had 18 shooting days, and it was a hustle from beginning to end. And I just thought, like, how does this make sense that there's a bus stop right here? And like we couldn't figure out how to like the bus was on for some of the stuff that we were shooting, so it was like really noisy. And I just at that point in the shoot I was like, this isn't gonna work. Let's just cut this out. But then we shot it and it came together, and I had to fight for it. There were some people who wanted to cut that scene, and it ended up being, at the screening that I did, like the biggest laugh, or the second biggest laugh in the movie. So I was really glad that that stayed in and it came together so well, and that like punch card punchline worked. Yeah, like in the screening that I did was a big laugh. So I was just so glad that all came together, because getting that bus and it was all such a pain in the butt, but it's all worth it.
Oh, for sure. And to wrap things up too, you talked about the your aesthetic with your films. I'm curious if you could create the perfect environment for someone to watch the film, what do you imagine that environment looking like? And it like wildest dreams, there's no budget.
Well, I'm a little bit of a what's the word? The opposite of bourgeoisie, like an equal to opportunity film watcher. Like if you wanted to watch this on your phone or on at a movie theater, like that's all good. I've had some of my most devastating cinematic experiences watching VHS on a 13-inch television.
Mm.
You know, I watched Barry Lyndon on VHS on a 13-inch television, and it changed my life. I was super high and in college, so that might have had something to do with it. But
Maybe a little.
I think the movies, good stories can have an impact no matter where you're watching. That said, I would just hope that people not be on their phones. Like that is ultimately, I guess that just like raises the stakes for me and gives me an extra challenge. Like if you can, I had a friend recently say something like, "You got to watch this show. You can't even be on your phone while it's on. Like you have to pay attention to it." So that's a challenge that I'm excited to meet. Like I want to make something that makes it like impossible for you to have a second screen while you're watching it.
I love that. And it also reminded me how I loved that you used flip phones in the film too.
Yeah. Oh, but the burner phone.
The burner
Yes.
phone, yeah,
That's right.
the
Yeah, yeah,
flip
yeah.
phone. That's great.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, Duncan, thank you so much. And I can't wait for everybody to watch Neighborhood Watch. It's great. I'm gonna go back and watch it again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amelia. Appreciate you.